Hey guys, Jeff here. It's been a long time since I've made a video, so I thought I would just jump into it. Now, Christmas season is coming. Hot cocoa, Kenny G. Shout out to Kenny G. Anyone else? Now, the truth about Christmas is it is actually deeply a story about hope amidst of suffering and hope amidst of hurting. Now, the first thing we learn from the Christmas story is how much hope is actually in Jesus's name. We sing about it, O come, Emmanuel, but a lot of us don't actually talk about what that means. And Emmanuel actually means God with us. It's not God aloof from us, God distant from us. And think about how all other world religions, that's really what is actually being portrayed, is that God is far away, He is distant, He has His back to you, and if you want to do a certain amount of things, pray this way, act this way, eat this way, then you can climb the ladder and hopefully get to Him at the end of time. The narrative we see in scriptures is that God, we couldn't do it. We are hurting, we are frail, we are broken because of other people's sin or because of our sin or decisions they've made or decisions we've made or just the evil and corruption of the world. And God says, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and enter into their story. Enter into their story. And that's why John is so explosive in the first chapter, because it says the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That word means tabernacle or temple. That word dwelt in Greek, meaning He pitched His tent in our backyard, in our life. He is with us. Do you believe that He's actually present with you in your hurting, in your suffering, also in your joy, and also in the good seasons, but He's specifically with you and enters into your story in the hurt? When you believe that, it changes everything, because you are not alone. He is present with you. And here's the thing, He never does promise to take away our hurt or take away our suffering, but He promises to always be with us in it and while we're going through it. So we never have to do it alone. He will carry the burden, and we do not have to walk the road by ourselves. Another thing the Christmas story reminds us of while we're hurting is that we can cling to His promises. So many times we get to these places where we understand God's truth or we understand God's promises, but then we forget about them when darkness hits. And I think I love a quote I heard that said, basically, don't forget what God said on the mountaintops when you're in the valleys, or basically don't forget what God said in the light to you when you're in the dark. Because in those moments, He gives you revelation and He gives you special promises maybe that you can see with a different clarity that then you can take advantage of in the hard seasons. And what we see is that whatever He says is true. Just like the Old Testament narrative had this arc of people waiting, and there was this anticipation and all this hurt and angst and suffering and exile, but yet God said He was going to send someone who was going to make it right, and that was Jesus. And He did. He fulfilled His promises. So cling to His truth, cling to His word, cling to His promises in the hard time. Now, this is the third tip, or the third thing we can learn from the Christmas story that I think is the most important, and that's don't be so focused on what you want kind of healing or God to pull you out of suffering to look like, that you actually miss what He's doing. And also kind of a cousin of that is don't be so focused on trying to get out of the suffering that you miss maybe what you can learn in it. Now, think about how this is actually the story of Jesus, right? There was this Old Testament arc, this Old Testament anticipation and waiting, and people were waiting for the Messiah, but they started to get this image conjured up that continued to solidify this person who was going to storm in as a king, kill the Roman enemies, and totally restore the nation of Israel, and that was what the Messiah was going to look like. And yet, because they clung to that picture so deeply, they actually missed what God was doing right in front of them. He didn't come as this righteous king to defeat the Roman enemies. He actually came as a humble baby, a vulnerable baby. And instead of crushing His enemies, He actually said to love His enemies, bless His enemies, pray for those who persecute you, He said. And on the cross, He said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. And that cross is the ultimate picture of the actual moment that looked like defeat, that looked like to them was the end of their story, was actually the moment of victory. That's why we wear it around our necks, because Jesus actually completely turned the cross on its head. It was a weapon of torture, a weapon of execution, and it's now actually a symbol of hope in some regards, because He turned the tide, and specifically 3 days later resurrected to show that death does not win, suffering does not win, hurt does not win. There is hope, there is resurrection, there is life. So know that. Don't be so stuck on what you want it to look like that you miss how God is actually going to bring healing and hope and resurrection in your life. And then the other ones, don't forget to cling to His promises. It is never in vain. They do come true. You can wait on Him. He is good. And lastly, His name is Emmanuel. He is God with us. You can trust that. You can soak in that. You can rest in that this Christmas season. So please be encouraged. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching. Now I want to give a huge shout out to one of my favorite sponsors that's sponsoring this month's video, and that is Audible. A lot of you know I love Audible. A lot of you know Audible. It's an audiobook service, and they're absolutely incredible. I listen to audiobooks all the time from them or through their library on my iPhone. You can also sync it with the iPad, so if I stop listening to a certain part of my iPhone, it picks up where I left off on my iPad or other devices, and I absolutely love them. They have an unmatched library of almost any book you can think of, but specifically I want to recommend one book that ties in with this video that is also on Audible, and that is A Broken Way by Ann Voskamp. Now, if you guys know her, she's incredible, and that's her newest book, and it is on Audible, and I absolutely love it because he talks about how actually God can use your story of brokenness to bring hope and healing to yourself through Jesus, but also to other people, and that is amazing and true. So if you want to get that book free with a 1-month membership to Audible, go to the link down there, audible.com/Jeff. They will hook you up, test it out, make sure you like it. My favorite part is if you don't love it, they have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and so you can return it and try a different one if you don't love it. But that's all I got. Check out the link. Link's down there in the description. Appreciate you guys. Peace.